Chapter 5. One by one they go out of the woods. In the weeks that led up to Tom's 12th birthday, Cicero and young Jollity took turns at night to visit the little wooden house in the clearing. Young Jollity grew in confidence with every one of his secret letter deliveries, and story bureau letters were found for each of the brothers in turn. After Jackie had set off proudly to take the role of a prince, it was Jake's turn. His letter was tied with sprite ribbon and hung from one of the oak staffs in the hallway. "I'm to be a prince too, mother," he said over his porridge one morning. "It's the southern gate for me, and a long walk, but to be playing a prince at last, well, it's bound to be worth it." "Your poor father never got to play a prince," said the mother sadly, and dabbed one corner of her eye with the corner of a napkin. The others stared gloomily into their wooden bowls for a moment, until Jack let out a big window-rattling belch, which, as usual, broke the mood. Other letters were soon found. One was addressed to Jacques, and the next morning there was another addressed to Jacquot, which was hidden inside the big copper saucepan. Another morning Jack's letter was found outside in the lean-to, tucked into one of the barrel slats of the wooden milk pail. He waved the envelope over his head and stuck out his big tongue at brother Jackson, who would surely now be the last of the Trueheart brothers to get his letter. "Now then, mother and all, let's see what kind of prince the story bureau wants me to be." With a big expectant smile on his face, he tore open the envelope, hardly taking time to appreciate the beautifully inscribed name and address. "Well then, mother," he said after he had read it, "you'd best be off and make up my adventurer's picnic if you wouldn't mind." He folded the letter and tucked it away into his tunic. "Hold on, Jackson," said Jackson. "Not so fast, our Jack. You seem to be very shy about telling us what kind of prince they want you to be all of a sudden." "The Story Bureau thinks so highly of me, they just want me to be myself," said Jack. "I am to play Jack," and he struck a heroic pose while holding a milk bucket high over his head. "Jackanapes, Jack-a-dandy, Jack-eye the Green, just old Jack in fact. I shall enter Storyland by the western gate, and then we shall see." Jackson stuck his tongue out at Jack, and Jack threw the remains of the breakfast butter at Jackson's head. Their mother fetched Jack a swift, sharp clout around the ear. "That's for wasting good butter," she said. "Anyway, stop your baby quarrelling and see what I have found in the pantry while you two were showing yourselves up good and proper of young Tom here. It was sitting on a lettuce leaf between two lumps of my best cheese." She held a familiar-looking envelope with familiar script written across it. "From the Story Bureau," it read. "Strictly confidential, for the attention of Mr. Jackson Trueheart, adventurer." So you see, here is Jackson's letter after all, and now each and every one of you will have your own story assignments, so let there be no more quarrelling. Jackson took the envelope, and with a great show of slowness and deliberation, he began to open it, cutting the very top of the edge very carefully with his knife. Jackson read his letter, and he took a very long time over it. He appeared to savour it, gulping it down with huge spoonfuls of porridge as he read. Then he looked up with a smile, folded his letter, and tucked it into his belt. "Well, boo to you, Jack. It seems that I too shall play the prince." "Oh yes," said Jack. "How come I get to play a poor simpleton peasant lad all the time, and the rest of you get to be posh princes, I should like to know?" "Your turn will come, our Jack," said his mother. "You look like a peasant, that's why," said Jackson. "Oh yes, then pray exactly what kind of prince will you be, you silly slimy lump?" Jack asked. "I will be a harumph prince," said Jackson, and he coughed strangely over one of the words as he spoke it, as if to cover it up. Like this: "I shall be a humph prince, even." "Sorry, didn't catch that. What was that?" asked Jack. "I said I will be a prince," said Jackson, going suddenly very whispery and quiet on that same crucial word, and at the same time he blushed bright red for shame. Jack sensed mischief, and his eyes lit up. Tom and their mother looked at each other puzzled. "Sorry," said Jack. We still couldn't catch it, your great highness. It sounded like a dog prince." "I said a frog prince. All right, go on, laugh all you like. At least I shall get to actually be a prince." "Oh, yes," said Jack, laughing heartily. "A tiny little green one with webbed feet and webbed fingers. No princess for you then, unless it's Princess Toadface, of course." Their mother put a stop to their quarrel with the threat of an ear boxing for the pair of them. "Riddip, riddip," said Jack, pointing at his brother Jackson with a big grin plastered on his face. Jack was the first of the two to leave that morning. He set off for the crossroads, still trying to tease his brother Jackson by making the occasional frog noise back at him. The last thing they heard, as Jack turned the corner before he was lost to sight, was a faint and happy teasing cry of "Ribbit, ribbit." Jackson himself set off after a hearty lunch. He promised Tom that he would be back in time for his 12th birthday, and with a good present too. He was dressed from head to foot in green, and in readiness for his transformation into a frog. He had a good idea of what to expect. He knew that as soon as he entered the gates of the land of stories, some sprite or other would somehow do its work as per the letter, and he would become transformed and an enchanted frog prince until such time as the story was properly finished. "Well," said his mother, dusting her hands down her pinafore front, "that's the last of them for this time, Tom. Now it's just you and me and a quiet, cold wait for them all to come back, bursting with their new stories." "And my birthday present," said Tom. "Not forgetting that, of course, Tom. My, where does the time go?" she said, ruffling his wild hair. And that's the end of chapter 5. I wonder what's going to happen next.